Hi, I'm Dr. Geoffrey Grammer. I'm a psychiatrist and a retired Army colonel, and you're listening to Grammer State of Mind. First, I want to thank everyone who's a new YouTube subscriber. It really means a lot to me, and I appreciate you giving up your time to join me as we explore psychology and politics. In the comments on my last episode, the one about the Portland frog, many of you asked for an analysis of the video that Donald Trump posted showing him flying a fighter jet over protesters and dropping human excrement from the bomb bay doors onto their heads. I've had some technological issues. I think we've overcome those. I appreciate everyone's patience. But good news, here it is. So let's go. Today's episode is titled Anal Sadism and the Sky God Complex, and it's a discussion about power, humiliation, and immaturity. For those that have not seen this video, picture this. Donald Trump is sitting in a fighter jet wearing full Top Gun gear, except instead of a flight helmet, he has a golden crown. On the side of the jet in golden letters, it says King Trump. He takes off, and the next scene, he's flying high over a city where the bomb bay doors open, and what falls out appears to be human feces. The scene after that shows a crowd down below, which we presume to be the No Kings protesters who are protesting against the idea of a monarchy in the United States, and brown liquid rains upon their heads, and they look shocked. It sounds like an adolescent cartoon, and yet it's a real video posted by the President of the United States to his social media feed. Now, I'm not going to show the video here. You can find it online. It's grotesque, it's juvenile, but it's potentially psychologically revealing. Now, I want to do an analysis of the character in the video, not the actual Donald Trump. I don't know Donald Trump. I haven't examined him. But we can actually glean a lot by the character in this video. So let's start with the jet. In the symbolic language of the psyche, flight can equal escape. It's a retreat from the unbearable gravity of shame. It's an escape from critical feedback or accountability from actions or any sense of responsibility to the American people. The president's flight isn't just about leaving protesters behind, but it's about the performance of superiority and the assertion of being omnipotent. It demonstrates a sense of impunity from actions and a superiority above all others. In this case, when his grandiosity is feeling threatened, his fragile self can't descend into a dialogue with the protesters or any consideration of their concerns. Instead, he retreats into sadism and humiliation. In psychoanalytic terms, this can be called the manic defense, a denial of guilt through displays of control and glory. And for those keeping track, this is another Melanie Klein term. A person says in this circumstance that they're not accountable to you, that they're above you. By claiming absolute superiority, it negates critique as being beneath the person, and therefore it has no merit. Think of it like a bunch of ants along a walking path where you're walking along. And they may protest you stepping on them, but it's of no concern to you because you are above the ants. This is the same impulse that can drive autocrats to have parades, or social media influencers who are narcissistic to declare that they're invincible. When the crowd is demanding humility, the leader is responding with arrogance. This lack of insight really is a risk factor for self-serving initiatives and a lack of ideological or moral direction to the policies or actions they're pursuing. The founders of our Constitution worked hard to insulate our government from such a ruler with these ideas of forced checks and balances. It's why the forfeiture of such by Congress and the Supreme Court has been so urgently concerning. So next comes the fecal moment. It's crude, but it's psychologically kind of precise. Freud noted that feces can symbolize power, control, and value in early childhood. A child learns that whatever comes out of them can either delight or disgust their caregivers, and therefore can bring approval or sometimes provoke punishment. defecation becomes a form of influence. It's a primitive way to assert agency when somebody has none. Think of it this way. If you walked into a boardroom, dropped your pants, and relieved yourself on the carpet, I guarantee you would instantly control the room's emotional narrative. You would probably instantly get put in handcuffs by police, so don't do that, but you get the idea. It is powerful, it is disgusting, it is demeaning, but it is an attempt to subvert all other dialogue, all other narratives. To drop waste on others, then, is one of the purest acts of contempt. It says to others that you are beneath me, you're not my equal, you're my toilet. In dynamic terms, this can be referred to as anal sadism. It's aggression that is being expressed through expulsion. It's the fantasy of purging one's inner filth by dumping it on the world. So when the president rains excrement on the protesters, he's not making a joke or satire. He's acting out projection of the things that he cannot handle and contain himself. We throw around the word narcissist quite a bit, but I think this video depicts something beyond that. Megalomania. The megalomaniac doesn't just crave admiration. They demand worship. In this case, Trump is confusing himself with the nation and his will with destiny for all of us. The fighter jet is an extension of his ego, phallic, gleaming, and unassailable. And the crowd below is no longer composed of citizens with self-awareness and rights. They're just noise, irritants, like ants along the walking path. In this fantasy, the dissent of the protesters isn't opposition. To Trump, it's blasphemy. And the tragic irony is that inside this omnipotent shell sits a terrified child who's desperate to try to obtain control. And when that inner child can't tolerate limits being placed upon them, he reaches for the sky and drops something foul on the rest of us. This is infantile regression under narcissistic injury and a complete collapse into primitive and juvenile defenses. The protesters can represent this idea of the superego, or society's moral conscience. Think of the superego as what allows our brains to define what we consider to be right and wrong, and that allows us then to operate in an adult and civil society. But the president is unable to bear society's judgment, and he is collapsing into denial, projection, and omnipotent control. Instead of processing some semblance of guilt for failing his citizens, he's weaponizing shame and humiliation to avoid that. Instead of introspection, he's choosing sadism. This isn't strength. It's an inability to tolerate the shared dialogue that is required of democracies. And the most regrettable part? From the cockpit, he probably feels like this represents victory, but for the rest of us, it is a psychological meltdown at 30,000 feet. I think it also tells us more than just about Trump. It tells us about social media and our society, a culture that sometimes rewards omnipotence, where people can mistake domination for decisiveness or cruelty for confidence. We have built systems and algorithms that celebrate people who escape accountability by criticizing or maligning others, who are dropping onto others what they cannot own within themselves. And people like Mike Johnson make this worse. Rather than condemning what should obviously be beneath the dignity of the office of the President of the United States, he deflects criticism and almost celebrates it. And when sadism becomes a presidential brand, we know that pathology is replacing leadership. The attempted humor here is really unsettling. What begins as an image of dominance ends as a sad, regressed display of demagoguery. The man in the jet is not showing power, but panic. And when the powerful defend their egos by degrading others, they are telling on themselves that they are unable to handle their own stuff. What he is dropping isn't power, it's a projection of inadequacy. Or to put it plainly and crudely, he is showing that he is unable to handle his own crap. I appreciate you hearing me today. Thanks for listening to Grammer State of Mind. If you found today's discussion illuminating, please share and subscribe. For a deeper dive, check out my Substack, which is linked below. And you can also follow me on X and Blue Sky. In the meantime, stay safe, stay informed, stay clean of other people's mess. Thanks.